Hello, everybody. This is Laura Genoway from JB&A, and I am here with Jeremy Strootman from Studio Network Solutions. And thanks, Jeremy. Let's go ahead and get started here.
All right, sounds good. Hello, everybody. As Laura had mentioned, my name is Jeremy Strootman. I work with Studio Network Solutions. And I want to be the first to thank you for attending our webinar entitled The Top 5 Concerns that People Have When Shopping for Shared Storage Solutions. For those of you who are unaware who Studio Network Solutions is, we've been developing shared storage solutions for the multimedia and entertainment business for 10 plus years, around 12 years to be exact. In those 12 years, we've certainly seen a lot of changes in terms of workflow tools that people are using to accomplish a post-production workflow. However, in that decade, ironically enough, the questions and concerns that people have as they move towards a shared storage platform haven't really changed a whole lot. I've been with the company for the better part of a decade, and I've been answering a lot of these same questions throughout the course of those years, even though the technology is changing a lot. Now, by all means, this is not the most comprehensive list of concerns people have, but we had to start somewhere, and I wanted to pick five concerns that keep coming up time and time again. And so we'll drill into a little bit more detail on how we address some of those concerns with shared storage solutions, and we'll go ahead and get started. So question number one that tends to crop up time and time again is, what do I have that I can leverage? What assets are in my facility now today that I can apply to a new shared storage solution? Most facilities have investments in either storage or some sort of network. It's pretty rare that we get involved in a situation where the entire facility is going from foundation up and we get to make all the calls. There are assets that have been acquired in the past. So what is it that I have that I can leverage moving forward? And as I move forward, what sort of infrastructure do I need to be investing in? What sort of network topology should I put money down on today? That's a huge question, especially with 10 Gigabit Ethernet becoming more and more available and cost effective. So people want to know, is that something that I have to move towards, or is it wise to move towards it right now? Another big question mark right now are platforms in terms of operating system and NLE or production tool platform. What mix of platforms can I use on a shared storage foundation? And what's going to be able to live cohesively in one networked environment. Another big concern that people have is what they can do to future-proof themselves. I mean, most of the time, the whole reason you're looking to move towards a shared storage solution is because the business is growing, and you're looking for avenues to become more efficient inside of your workflow and all of that. So if the business is growing, what happens with what I put in today, and what happens when I grow? Again, what if I double my business or triple my business in the next few years? And that kind of blends into what technology is really going to be relevant in the future. What's going away? What are people moving away from? What technology is promised to us in terms of being available in the near future, and what kind of impact does that make on a decision that I make today? So we'll go ahead and jump right into these and kind of take a closer look at these questions and dive into more detail. First, I want to take a look at these words that I've highlighted in orange, as words that not only are applicable to just media and entertainment or a post-production facility, but I think these words are applicable to anybody running a business, anybody who has invested their time and invested their money into their own business and are looking to continue realizing revenue on that investment, right? So these are things that I even think about today in my business. What do I have that I can leverage? What do I need to invest in? What's going to grow my business? What's going to keep me relevant in the future? These are all things that I think a lot of people talk about. But let's focus on just the media and entertainment side in shared storage solutions. So most people, as I had alluded to before, have some sort of investment in storage, whether that's USB or FireWire or some sort of eSATA or SAS RAID array. I think all of us have been in a facility or are in a facility with a stack of GTEC drives or LaCie drives that's sitting in the corner. Most workstations or a good number of workstations will have direct attach eSATA or SAS arrays connected to the workstation just for RAID protection, for speed, to be able to access that content as quickly as possible. And a large number of people are investing in Thunderbolt technology as well as a direct attach option. So, in these cases, there may be, a rudimentary kind of networking topology where you may be taking that storage and resharing it over a file share protocol like AFP or SMB or something along those lines. That's just for accessibility, certainly not for speed capability. So they've got these tools in place. They've made an investment. At the end of the day, it is storage, and it is, it's a bank of hard drives, and I want to be able to use it. But the more workstations I add to the environment, the less and less useful these tools become, the more isolated they really are to one workstation. So our approach in this, the way we like to approach this, is to take those assets, although they're designed to be localized storage, take those assets and make them a part of the network. So show them in the same interface, show them in the same pane of storage that you're going to be able to access through the new shared storage solution. So these assets can become repurposed for use cases like sound effects libraries or stock footage libraries or nearline storage. The concept of the online storage or the shared storage solution is to be a high-speed, high-availability access area for all active projects and current projects that are in production. But we can leverage these SAS and SATA and FireWire and Thunderbolt arrays to also present themselves over the same network so everybody can access them at the same time. And this is what we're doing to leverage storage that has already been invested in. Certainly we want to be able to repurpose that stuff. So what about the infrastructure then? What happens when you put a shared storage solution into place? What kind of investment do I need to make to support that? A lot of people are asking me about 10 gigabit Ethernet. Do I need to make an investment of that versus fiber channel? And how soon do I need to get somebody in to run this topology? And my answer to that really is, if there is no technical need to push you towards making that investment in infrastructure, then don't make the investment today. Apple and Avid have done a wonderful job of providing for us excellent codecs for high-def editing. You know, DNX HD and ProRes are beautiful-looking codecs for, when you compare them to the data rates they're actually utilizing. So all of that can really be done inside of standard Gigabit Ethernet, of which most people have some sort of a network run. So we're able to use, again, repurpose and leverage that asset to get a shared storage solution online. Now, what pushes us out of that? Well, certainly if anybody starts to do any work in uncompressed editing, or anybody's doing any finishing with uncompressed, like DPX image sequences, things like that. I mean, those are the things that really are going to push us into a 10 gigabit or fiber channel network. So the idea is, or the preference is, to be able to make that change when you need to make that change, when you need to make that investment. So you change the topology on the shared storage side and on the workstation side. You're not throwing away any workstations. You're not taking the shared storage solution out of commission and rebuying a solution. You're simply changing the topology on those sides and then making the cable run based on what the actual data need is. And that's what we do to help leverage existing Gigabit Ethernet networks and help postpone the decision on what kind of a network you need to build in place to support your environment until you actually have to make that investment or make that decision. The same rules apply here when we're talking about different mixed platforms. One of the biggest questions today is, especially for those who are a heavy Final Cut Pro 7 shop, is where am I going to move in the future? Am I going to move to Final Cut X? Am I going to move to Premiere? Am I going to move to Avid? These are huge questions that people have that they can't really make a decision on, or can't tell you today which way they're going to move. So again, the recommendation is, don't make any decisions you don't have to make today. You know, we just have to make sure the shared storage platform is capable of managing Final Cut Pro project files, as well as Premiere and Avid bin sharing, you know, as you move forward into the future. So just because that capability is there doesn't mean you need to use it right now. Now, we've all heard of the facility of 100 workstations that just all of a sudden flipped over to Avid one day, but the reality is that is, for those of us in a small post-production facility, that's not something we're going to do overnight. The best practice is to start to get your feet wet with this newer technology, or newer to you technology. So the idea is you switch a workstation at a time. You add a workstation. We try out Media Composer and we try out Premiere. And once we decide on a preferred platform, you can either standardize on that or maintain a mixed platform. And that's what most people are going to be doing anyway. They're going to have mixed operating systems. They're going to have mixed LEs. And they're going to start mixing in things like Smoke and Resolve because of the incredible price point that's being offered. So again, making a decision, being forced to make a decision on a shared storage solution based on what you may or may not be doing in the future is not something anybody should be forced into having to do. So the recommendation there is, again, don't make any decisions you don't have to make. So what about growth? What happens when my business doubles in the next year? What happens when I land that next big project? What happens when you know, I acquire you know, 6 new editors, or I get a finishing guy on board that's now part of my network? And the idea here is we don't want to really alienate anybody from the network. We want everybody to be living on the same platform. But at a fundamental level, or starting at the beginning, really, we should only spec into place what's going to be used today. A small amount of storage and a couple connectivity points for some workstations is what's going to get us by in the short term. So we want to lay a foundation that you can build on. We're really talking about scalability here. So when you add projects or your need for online assets grows, you can just add more storage. As you add more storage, you're probably going to be adding more editors. The idea is that with this foundation in place, you're going to be able to grow and grow and grow. So changing topologies, adding mixed workstations, mixed operating systems, adding more storage. Again, this is just showing the scalability of where you can go with that as long as you put the right foundation in place, because no one wants to rebuy something they've already purchased. So we don't want to render the shared storage solution that works for the environment today. We don't want to render that useless tomorrow. Again, as the environment grows, you can move to a switch infrastructure and move to mixed topologies. So the way we've architected a lot of our solutions for these environments is to be able to swap out the different connectivity points on the back plane. So you're able to do a huge mix of Ethernet-based clients and fiber channel and 10 gigabit Ethernet clients. So that's kind of the idea. Now, in terms of the future, of course it's unwritten. That sounds like a cliche. But honestly, not a day goes by that a new tool doesn't come out to support one of these members of the post-production workflow. New softwares and new hardwares are becoming available day after day that help unlock more and more workflow. So in terms of the future, we architect our solutions to be the most flexible for these new tools that are becoming available. That is why we created a completely open platform to allow for things that we haven't even considered yet to come in. So I'll tell you kind of how we do that. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Evo here. So Evo is a SAN. It's also a NAS. It's your traditional SAN infrastructure, whether it's fiber channel or iSCSI. You know, it's what editors are used to working on in terms of a shared SAN solution in a editing workflow. But it's also a NAS solution, and the benefit of having a NAS inside of the same storage array is unlocking third-party workflow tools such as asset management solutions, archiving solutions, ingest and transcode solutions, to be able to connect over whatever topology they deem necessary, which brings me to the connectivity. Once again, we provide the accessibility for 1 gigabit Ethernet clients, but at any time, you have the ability to add 10 gigabit Ethernet or fiber channel to the backplane. And all these protocols, this iSCSI and fiber, which of course are iSCSI is an Ethernet-based SAN connectivity, and fiber channel is fiber channel. It's a SAN connectivity over optical. But on the Ethernet side, on the 1 gig and 10 gig side, we're providing connectivity over Apple File Protocol, SMB, NFS, Secure FTP, because we want to be able to not only accommodate everybody in the post-production life cycle, but we want to accommodate the other tools that help drive that life cycle. Furthermore, based on the tool of choice, whether we're talking about just an NLE, we're talking about a finishing station, we need to be able to lock up certain access points inside of the platform as well. So if I'm working on a project file, whether it's a Final Cut Pro project file or an Avid project file, I'm locking up just that project file to make changes to it. You might lock up a whole folder if I'm rendering out a DPX image sequence and I don't want anybody else to gain access to that folder. And you may lock up a whole volume if you're doing a live multi-camera ingest and you don't want anybody arbitrarily coming in and making changes to the file system while I'm writing to it. So again, that just shows the flexibility. I mean, at the end of the day, we really wanted to provide a solution, an open architecture or an open platform for third-party software and hardware tools. And again, I'm talking about ingest solutions, transcode solutions, encoding solutions. I'm talking about asset management solutions, automation tools, playout servers, scheduling software, archive-based solutions. You know, these are all tools that help enhance the workflow. And as long as we're able to maintain that open platform or that foundation in the center of it all, then we're really going to be able to accommodate an end-to-end life cycle, and we're going to be able to scale infinitely, and we're going to be able to future-proof ourselves. So these are really the types of facilities that are taking advantage of this this type of a shared storage solution. Certainly, you can take a look at the list or the demographic and see that there are some highly dynamic environments. You know, especially on the reality TV side, where things are changing daily. You know, honestly, you know, the window of time between a show being greenlit and the network wanting delivery of the first episode seems to be getting smaller and smaller. So we don't want the shared storage foundation to be the stumbling block towards adding new workstations, changing operating systems, changing NLEs, changing codecs or delivery mechanisms for that matter. So again, this is kind of the demographic that we're really talking about here. So again, just a review in terms of what people are really concerned about. And again, this is really from a business owner perspective, you know, what people are concerned about today. You know, and we're talking about the people who have invested a lot of their own money, a lot of their own time into their baby, so to speak. So they want to know that what they're putting in place is going to be able to serve them now, but in the future. They want to know what they can leverage, what they can use that they've already purchased. You know, they want to know what they have to invest in today and what they might be looking at in the future. They want to know that they can mix things around in terms of operating system, in terms of NLE, in terms of post-production function. If they want to bring in a finishing guy or bring in a DaVinci workstation or a Scratch workstation, that it's not going to be you know, alienated from the rest of the work group. They want to know that this thing is going to take care of them if their business doubles and triples or quadruples in the next couple of years. And they want to know that they're not going to be sitting on something that's completely irrelevant in terms of a technology in the next couple of years. With that said, I want to invite you to another webinar, another short 20-minute webinar that I'll be doing here in July, entitled "Build a 5-Seat Stand for $2,000." You know, you will be receiving a follow-up email from most likely Laura at JB&A, and we're going to be able to you're going to be able to subscribe to that, and you know, I'd like to see you all again on that. Again, if you have any questions feel free to reach out to me here. There's my email address. If you have any questions about anything you've seen or anything in this presentation, I'm always available and would be happy to answer any questions in more detail. With that, I just want to thank you so much for your time today and pass it over to Laura.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. We actually have quite a few questions here from the attendees, so if you'd like, I can go ahead and read those off and see if you can get those answered for people.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let me find the first one here. Let's see. Okay, this question is on the leverage side. Not quite sure. This is, yeah, I'm hearing a...
Let me do this. I'm going to turn down my workstation. Maybe it's coming
echo.
from me.
Okay. So this question actually seems to be just about the slides. As we were going through, a couple of people, I guess, were maybe confused about some of the slide configuration. Maybe they were looking at something they were doing. So it's asking on one of the slides showed the Pegasus to the laptop. They're saying it should be Thunderbolt, not GBE. So I'm not sure. You know, that's
yeah,
a question,
that's actually a great point. So in terms of when we're leveraging Pegasus arrays, certainly it is Thunderbolt. You know, that is the connectivity. But ultimately, what we've been doing a lot of lately is actually helping people to take those. You know, right now Thunderbolt is obviously supporting a lot of peripherals that are coming out, but from a storage standpoint, the Pegasus array is a Thunderbolt array that is, until the future, is going to be a direct attached storage array. So what we're doing is we're leveraging some of our software-based solutions to take that Thunderbolt connection and present that over a network. So at the end of the day, it is still Gigabit Ethernet that the clients are connecting to, but certainly right. The Thunderbolt array should be connected to whatever OS over Thunderbolt.
Okay, perfect. There were a couple of questions on that point, so I'm glad you got that one. And then another question is it new that SAN-MP now features full file level sharing?
We use SAN-MP still in an area where you're able to present storage to users based on their credentials. So an administrator will decide to lock out certain people from volumes based on, you know, what they should be seeing. So whether it's based on an episode that an editor should be editing, whether it's based on a client that the editor should be working on their material for. But we rely less and less on SAN-MP as the accessibility, the access to the storage array. So more and more it's Evo, and Evo is file locking and folder locking and all of that. So you know, SAN-MP is not necessarily the end-all be-all. We still leverage it in situations where we do want to lock a volume up in terms of being able to have like a multicam ingest or something along those lines. But no, really inside of the Evo itself, we've got, you know, multi-write file-based volumes. We've got Avid file system volumes. We've got, you know, file shares that are presented just to the web. So it's extremely flexible what you can do inside of that. At its core, SAN-MP has not changed much, but we don't always use SAN-MP when we're architecting an Evo solution.
Okay, great. The next question is, do you have any best practice guides for SAN implementation?
Yeah, there are certain documents that I probably need to compile into one end-to-end almost best practice guide. But certainly, there are certainly things that need to be considered. In terms of architecting a SAN solution, you want to take into consideration, we talked a lot about the future, so we talked a lot about building a platform in terms of building a platform or a foundation that you can grow upon. But in terms of architecting a solution for the assets that are available today, there are things you do want to take into consideration. It changes depending on how content is acquired and how it leaves the facility. So, if you're acquiring your content based on a lot of live multicam ingests, you might set up or architect the solution in one way versus receiving a lot of P2 cards or S/S cards, or receiving hard drives or LTO tapes for a file-based ingest and edit. So certainly, I should look towards the future in terms of putting together specific webinars that kind of talk about that, because there are cases where you want to keep your media in one area, keep your project files in another area, keep approvals and proxies in another area. That certainly warrants a whole nother webinar with a whole nother agenda, and I would be happy to do that in the future.
All right, yeah, that sounds good. Got another question here. Does Evo have built-in SAN management software, or is it using software you folks sell? Do I need an MDC, etc.?
Right. I'm sorry, Evo comes with, it was designed to be a turnkey solution, so it comes with everything you really need. So yeah, it's all in an unlimited form. There are 14 direct connections that you can make on an Evo, but you saw in one of my slides I had a situation where you've got a ton of workstations coming in over a switched infrastructure and all of that. That is completely contained using Evo software and all of that. So it is a turnkey solution that can roll out like that, and it is unlimited licensing. So there is no licensing to Evo. As long as you have Evo and you want to connect to it, you're going to be able to connect to it. And you're going to be able to have an administrator who's going to allow you into certain sections of the storage. Now, with that being said, Evo is not 100% locked down to its software. If you want to take Evo and implement it in part of a clustered file system, let's say, and this kind of gets back to leveraging existing assets. If you have a facility that has standard on a clustered file system, meaning not using native HFS Plus or NTFS file systems, Evo can slip in as a part of existing storage. So in the turnkey solution, you do not need any MDCs or metadata controllers or outside servers. Evo of itself is storage and a server in one box, so it's a server storage appliance. If you're moving towards a clustered file system like a StorNext or an XSAN, then you do move towards the more typical topology where you would have a metadata controller and you would have that separate metadata network. Evo does make it a little more cohesive, where you do not have to have a metadata LUN on Evo. And this is getting pretty technical, so I hope I don't bore anybody. But you don't have to have a metadata LUN on Evo. But you would need a metadata controller if you were supporting an XSAN or StorNext network. But again, as a turnkey solution, it comes with everything you need.
Okay, Cool. And somebody wants to know how Evo helps them utilize their existing fiber and NAS, or doesn't.
Sure. So there's a couple ways we can do that. Evo software is designed um, to take control of any fiber channel or iSCSI storage. So it sees that storage and will present it in its own interface. So for example, if you've got 2 or 3 existing fiber channel arrays, Evo will take control of that and present it in its GUI, basically, as available storage for you to mount up. The editors could be a level abstracted from that, where they don't even realize if they're actually accessing Evo or if they're accessing the old fiber channel storage. Only the administrative layer would really where that would be apparent. So we can either connect that into the same fabric, or you can plug fiber channel storage directly into the back of Evo and represent that as Ethernet storage. So we do have a fiber to iSCSI capability inside of Evo where you can plug into the back of it. So there's really 2 approaches. Just put Evo on the same fabric, in which Evo will take control of that storage, or plug that storage into the back of Evo. In terms of NAS storage, depending on the device, the NAS device, there may be topologies and services we can leverage to do the very same thing. So, for example, if the NAS device natively supports iSCSI, we're going to be able to do a little bit more with it versus something that just shares out, like, say, CIFS or SMB share. In which case, if it is just sharing out a NAS protocol and it's a separate NAS box, we may recommend that becomes a nearline storage device, because I'm certainly a firm believer in having your online storage, but also having a nearline sitting in between online and archive. So there's a couple of different recommendations I could make in terms of existing NAS storage.
Okay. Let's see. Can you tell us about the integration with Avid?
Yeah. So there's really 3 ways you can present storage from Evo. Sometimes you can present storage from Evo multiple ways at the same time. But obviously, I alluded to the SAN side of Evo, which is just your native SAN protocols. Your NAS side, where your AFP, SMB, NFS, and secure FTP. But there's a third type of storage you can carve out of Evo, and it's our Avid file system, basically. And really, what it's designed to do is to present a file system that Media Composer and Symfony are used to working in natively. So when we present this volume, and when the Avid editors are connected to that volume, there's nothing in terms of the Evo user interface that really tells them you've got to do this or you've got to do that. Avid really just mounts that storage up and presents the bin inside of Media Composer like it normally would with other Avid-based solutions. So your bin is going to look the same as it would if it were on an ISIS or a Unity. And bin sharing capabilities work the same way, where other editors are able to get into that same file system and see those same bins and open them up on their workstation.
Okay. Who are some customers that use Evo?
I'll give you a couple of use cases. One of our testaments to scalability and growth would be Left Field Pictures in New York. There's a perfect example of a group of people who started with 16 terabytes of storage and maybe 6 or 7 editors on Ethernet, and have scaled to 600 terabytes and 150 users, somewhere along those lines. They built that foundation about 5 years ago, but now they have, 13 shows on air, I believe, 12 or 13 shows on air right now, with another 10 of them in development. So they've scaled, they've grown astronomically and at a very rapid pace. And so that's a testament to the scalability. In terms of some other use cases, I've taken Sesame Street off of XSAN and into just the turnkey Evo solution, just because it was a little easier to maintain the Evo workflow than it was the XSAN workflow. And the IT guys over there are great, and they certainly know exactly what they're doing. But there was a lot of effort on their part to maintain the XSAN network, and they just wanted something simpler that they could, kind of manage, a little bit easier. So Sesame Street's another one. But certainly a lot of educational institutions like Johns Hopkins and UCLA. I'm trying to think of any good. Screaming Flea Productions is another excellent case of a reality, a company working on reality or unscripted television that's in an all Avid workflow, doing Avid binge sharing. That's a couple of good ones there.
Yeah.
I certainly have a more extensive list that I could share if somebody's got a specific use case they want to hear more about.
Exactly. We've got a lot of questions here, so hopefully you're hanging in there, Jeremy.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, let's see. Does Evo support fiber-to-fiber sharing like iSCSI over fiber? But over fiber.
I'm going to assume that the question is, can I take a fiber channel storage array, plug it into Evo, and have that shared over fiber channel through Evo? And we specifically did not architect Evo where you've got a fiber-to-fiber bridge, so to speak. However, that's not to say that we can't present that storage over fiber and iSCSI at the same time. So, for example, if you've got a switched infrastructure, if you do have a fiber channel switch, I can take a port of, let's just go ahead and pick an array, like a Promise VTrack array. You take a port of fiber to the switch. Now that Promise array is visible through fiber channel through the Evo user interface. And you take that port of fiber to a second port of fiber to the back of Evo. And now those users are also able to see that same array over Ethernet. So you can have a tower accessing the Promise array through the Evo interface, accessing the Promise array over fiber, but have a laptop come in and plug into the Ethernet network and access that same content on the same Promise array. It's kind of confusing to try and talk out, but
yeah.
And
the person asking that question said yes, that is what they were asking.
Okay,
so,
perfect. And just another note, 1 gigabit or 10 gigabit the whole way through. So,
all right.
And anything able to be done on 1 gigabit is also able to be done on 10 gigabit in any scenario.
Okay. A couple of people actually want to know if Evo is suitable for virtualization, and what's the best type of connection for VM running databases?
That's a good question. There are. I'm going to go ahead and encourage those people to email me that question. Okay. Because I've had varying levels of success with VMware, and none of the cases that I put together have been exactly the same. So again, it's been kind of spotty. the use case has been different every time. So if I can get specific questions emailed to me, I will without a doubt follow up, because I do think that this is an area that everybody needs to start looking at. I mean, obviously VMware is huge in the data center right now, and I feel like either it or solutions like it are going to become more and more prevalent in our area.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for doing that, Jeremy.
Sure.
That's great. So we'll definitely address those later. And then how about managing events and projects in Final Cut Pro X on Evo?
So managing events, that's kind of a, not exactly sure what's being driven at there. But in terms of projects, we have the ability now to really present Final Cut X the same way you would Final Cut 7. So a lot of those projects, or managing the project inside of shared storage, works and looks the same as it does on the Final Cut side. So certainly all the raw media is able to be seen and used by everybody, so multiple users are accessing all that content at the same time. And then the users are allowed to pass that project file from one editor to another throughout the course of the life cycle of that project. So if you do have multiple editors that are working on an episode or a client project or something along those lines, they are going to be able to share all of that content the same way they would on Final Cut 7. So our interoperability between Final Cut 7, Final Cut X, and Premiere, for that matter, all look and act very similar to one another. Avid's a little bit different. We're just presenting it more native or closer to what Avid editors are used to seeing in those workflows. But I hope I answered that question right.
Okay, great. Somebody's asking about demo systems, whether or not those are provided, and I know Jeremy will be able to address this more than I will, but I do know our JB&A team, if you reach out to one of your your sales rep over here at JB&A, that we do have demo units that we send out. And also I know that Jeremy and some of our outside sales guys will come by and do demos for specific end users too. Is that correct, Jeremy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's several ways we can kind of get a closer look at the real bread and butter, or the real meat and potatoes of this thing, rather. We've definitely got webinars, much like the one today, where we can do kind of a closer, specific webinar based on what the client is looking to achieve, and we can address and answer those questions with live EVOs. JB&A certainly has hardware that is available to be shipped. We have hardware that's available to be shipped. A lot of our reseller base have EVOs up and running in demo rooms connected to Smoke, Resolve, Final Cut, Avid, Pro Tools, whatever you want. They've got that all in their demo rooms. So depending on where you're coming from and what's available in the marketplace, we're certainly going to be able to put something together. Absolutely.
Okay. And last one we're going to probably have time for is what about price point for EVO? So maybe you could just run over maybe the MSRP for that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, absolutely. We have an entry level. It's right around $12,000. But to be perfectly honest, where most people are going, where the most people are spending their money, is right around $18,000, right around $19,000 is a very good small work group usable solution. To continue to add on that, and that's really talking around the 6 users or so, right around 16 terabytes. But of course it can scale from there. I mean, the average Evo sale does come in between $18,000 and maybe about $30,000. And, it gets a little bit better when you start working with some of the other workflow tools that JB&A offers in terms of CatDV for asset management and Cache for archival. When we start to bundle all those together, we've been working so long with JB&A and those other manufacturers that we all work with one another to help drive down the cost of our own solutions if somebody's really getting into an entire workflow like that.
Yeah, and so anyone who had a question typed in that we didn't get to, I know we're going to have a list of those questions at the end, and your JB&A sales rep or Ryan or both will get back to you on those. And please do go ahead and sign up for the other webinar that's going to be on July 18th at 10 a.m. same time, Pacific time. That one's going to be how to building a 5-seat stand for $2,000. Is that right, Jeremy?
That's right. I'll tell you how to do it.
All right, and that link will be coming out on your confirmation email that you'll get shortly. And also a copy of this particular webinar will be up on our partner portal probably sometime tomorrow, so you can go there and check it out and listen back to if you missed some questions and answers or just wanted to review the information. So thanks everybody for joining us, and thanks Jeremy. This was a lot of fun and a lot of information.
Yeah, well, thank you. I want to thank everybody for their time. I tried to keep it short, but obviously we're at an hour now, so I must have said something right. But thank you everyone for your time. I know how busy your days are, and I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks everyone. Bye, Jeremy.
Bye.